Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you're able to join us this fine Sunday afternoon for our Eastern Region Gilbert-Chappell Distinguished Poets Series reading, featuring some fine poets who you'll hear from shortly. I'm Annalena Phillips-Bell. I'm the Distinguished Poet for the Eastern Region, and with thanks to the North Carolina Poetry Society for appointing me as such. It is an honor and a privilege, and I am lucky to work with Kelly Jones, who's the coordinator for the Eastern Region and also the editor and designer of the Witness Anthology, which collects poems from across the state from poets participating in this series. And Kelly, I imagine, will tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but for the moment, I just want to give props to him for all the work he does behind the scenes to make this program go. And he's going to tell you a little bit about next year's program too. So if you're curious or interested in joining us, he'll tell you how to apply, as well as how to get your hands on a copy of this beautiful anthology. Kelly?
Thank you so much, Annalena. It's been a great year with these poets and poets from all across the state in the Gilbert-Chappell series. David Radovich is here joining us. He is the statewide coordinator for Gilbert-Chappell. I just want to tell you a little bit about it because it's been a very important program for not only the North Carolina Poetry Society, but poetry in North Carolina in general. And the Gilbert-Chappell Mentor Series takes 3 distinguished poets and pairs them with a middle school student, a high school student, a college student, and an adult student. And the distinguished poets and the mentees work intensely on poetry, polishing, working towards a reading and a publication. And we've just published our 2022 edition of Witness, 100 pages long. I think it's our largest edition ever, and it's available on lulu.com. I have just a screenshot up in the corner there, but if you go to lulu.com and search for Witness 2022, you'll find it. And I just thank these poets from across the state. The work was really good this year, as it is every year, but exceptionally strong. So it's a great program. I went through the program and it affected me immensely and had a huge positive impact on me. So I'm a big believer. And if you're interested in applying, if you'll go to the North Carolina Poetry Society website, it's there, I believe, in the news section. There's a section for the Gilbert-Chappell series, and the applications, I believe, are being taken now. So we are looking for new poets to mentor and develop as part of the mission for the North Carolina Poetry Society.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you so much, David, for joining us. It's always so good to see you. And another person who does incredible work behind the scenes to make this series possible across our whole state of North Carolina. So thank you, David. And thanks to everyone who's here. If you're joining us by Zoom, I've put links to a couple of the things that Kelly mentioned in the chat. If you're watching some other way, you can find the anthology and the application process in the ways that Kelly described at the North Carolina Poetry Society website and at lulu.com. All right, I think it's about time to hear some poems. What do y'all think? I'm going to get us started. So our first featured poet today is Leah Dew, one of the 4 poets I've been working with this year. Leah is from a little town called Clarendon, North Carolina, and she says this can attribute to her passion of escaping rural life and traveling the world. But I want to tell you that in her poems, Leah is already traveling the world. You will hear references to art, to Greek mythology, to all kinds of cultural phenomena that make it into these finely crafted poems that she is making. Leah got her start in the poetry world in a community festival poetry contest, and she is one of the state's first youth poet laureates and has been working this year as well with our wonderful North Carolina poet laureate, Jackie Shelton Green. So y'all please welcome Leah Dew.
Okay, the first poem I'll be reading is called Time Constraints. The concept of time holds many interpretations. Some exploit life with the excuse of scarcity, not giving a second thought of damage and reputations, concealing their hidden fears of falsehood furtively. Others crave an all-consuming distraction, searching for the illusion of expansion and artifice, getting lost within various appealing factions, each condemning one another on preferred satisfaction. Both sides of a non-existent spectrum believe the other a waste, trying to convince unchangeable minds their separate solace. Misguided feelings reciprocally targeted gravely misplaced, unaware of the force that is truly acting upon us. What neither understands is the absence of truth. Time lacks care for the people it affects, continuing to carelessly snatch our fleeting youth, leaving all assumed interpretations void with misdirect. My second poem I'll be reading is In Vain Attempt. Success once an aptitude I held proudly, pleasing a surrounding audience, carrying strong support. Praises suited for Achilles shouted loudly, an open ankle to be soon easily warped. Struck with a creeping intimate feeling, a lack of hands on a forgotten wheel, an attempt to regain control is most appealing. However, an unstoppable force gives an uneasy feel. Unconscious efforts worked wonders for a rudimentary task, allowing smooth sailing for an ambitious mind. Now, underdeveloped habits refuse to ask, causing stormy waters to begin to define. Life looked as though drawn in a haste, for I lacked the needed artistic ability. Things felt as insecure as old paint, and I longed for the acrylic stability. The third poem I'll be reading is called A Rude Awakening. Witnessing the Renaissance-like scene unfold before me, allowed a first-hand Jean-Baptiste masterful painting, Versailles ceiling filled with shades of hurt and uncertainty, an accidental splotch of red forever staining. An act so unholy to leave a tree fruitless, virtuous traits of integrity throw aside, for your betrayal felt as though of Judas, without the remorseful suicide. The end was an unexpected rapture, revenge begged like sinners before a church door, a picture I hadn't wished to capture, the light unknowingly blown out would shine nevermore.
Oh, I'm speaking, and yet you could not hear me. I'm going to try again. Leah, that was fantastic. And I want to say how much I love that acrylic stability line, particularly, but all those poems, such a joy to hear aloud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Our next poet for the afternoon is Hayden Garmain. She is a junior at Wayne School of Engineering, and she has many pursuits in addition to poetry that inform her work. She participates in Scouts BSA, and she became the first ever female Eagle Scout in Wayne County, which is a feat. She enjoys going to country music concerts, and I can say that her love of music is definitely apparent in her work. I can hear the way that she listens so carefully to music and the way she constructs her lines in her poems, and also her rhymes are like out of this world. So please welcome Hayden Garmain.
I'm gonna read. Sorry. One of the first poems I'm going to read is called Sunset. The sun lowers, the wave crash, colors mix, a beating heart slows. The noise disappears, a fire burns to ash, the sun lowers, the waves crash. Children stop playing, the day seems to pass, the world seems to sleep, a firefly glows. The sun lowers, the waves crash, the colors mix, the fire burns, a beating heart slows. And then for my second poem, it's called Learn and Forget. Everything we need to know, we learned before we're 10 years old. We learned how to read and write. We learned that it's bad to lie. We learned how to make friends. We learned how to make amends. We learned that fighting is bad. We learned how to respect mom and dad. We learned how to tie our shoes. We learned how it's okay to lose. But somewhere in this mess of life, we lost all of that childhood light. And then for my third one, it's called I Know. I would like to dedicate this to girls at my school and everyone there that they're trying to fool. I know that every morning you try to wake up. I know that every morning you do your makeup. Every morning you put on a mask and try to look happy in case someone asks. I know that every morning you're not quite awake. Every morning you just want to break. Every morning you arrive to class. Every morning you're just trying to pass. I know that every morning you say you're all right, but I also know what happens at night. I know that every night you try to go to bed, and every night you feel that spinning in your head. I know that every night you try to fall asleep. Every night you just can't count sheep. I know that every night you say you're okay because they don't understand what happens all day. I know all of this because I've been there too. I know all of this because I am you. So, yeah.
Thank you, Hayden. Fantastic. You can really hear the music, especially in that last one, I feel. I really love the way the meter works in that one. All right, our next poet of the day, and I believe our final reader for the day, is Lauren Jones. Lauren finished a BFA at UNC Wilmington, where I was lucky to work with her in that context as well, BFA in creative writing, and she's now a first-year graduate student at George Washington University. She writes poetry and essays, and she also is the founder of a literary magazine at UNC Wilmington during her time there called Sea Breeze that focused on publishing art and writing by Black writers. So very exciting career already in the literary world. And I'm very excited to hear her read today. Please welcome Lauren Jones.
Thank you, Annalena. My first poem is called A New Generation, and I want to dedicate it to my grandparents. My grandpa grew up on a tobacco farm, the older brother to 13 siblings with backaches and dark mornings. He said yes, sir, to the landowner, who just knew a 10-year-old Negro would never amount to anything. My grandmother grew up on a farm beside a creek, and they followed that Brooks Creek for 5 miles to school. With blisters and the unpredictable weather, their futures as endless and rough as the creek. My mom grew up in a house her parents built specifically for her, so she'd be protected from the blisters and the tobacco. I grew up with a little spoon in my mouth. It's not much, but it gets food into my mouth just the same, and it doesn't complain much. But my DNA remembers the hard work, though my bones never knew physical suffering. And that does give me a little privilege, and the children in my generation, whose parents are determined to do better for their kids, refusing to let them play in a garden, saying yes, sir, to only fathers and grandpappies, promising we will never set foot on land we don't own, and letting us pave our own way in this world. Thank you. And so my next poem is called Missy's Master. Somewhere in King, North Carolina, there's a 30-something-year-old man sitting in an aqua 1998 Ford pickup truck. A not comically large Confederate flag is jerry-rigged to stand in the bed of said truck. The truck, named Missy, is in need of dire detail. Her undercarriage is looking fine, though. The man, whose life is defined by moments like these, sees 2 Black girls driving by. These Black girls went away for a weekend, and now they are sitting in a Walmart parking lot as they cry at the sapphic love they have for each other. Confrontational girl is driving a Honda Accord with anxious girl in her passenger seat. They drive by Missy, see the flag, and confrontational girl flips the car off. A therapist, white, will later tell the anxious girl that it's not a good idea to provoke people, even when they are wrong. Missy roars to life to protect her man. She's loyal to a fault. Missy follows the 2 girls for 1 mile, hunking and revving, proudly standing behind this man, whose life will never be as good as this moment. Eventually, she must make a left turn and leaves the 2 girls to fend for themselves in the back hills of King, North Carolina. And life continued. These 2 girls return home, and Missy stays with someone who isn't worth her time or gas. And confrontational girl moves on with her life because she doesn't think about the trash she takes out. And anxious girl doesn't remember what life was like before King, North Carolina. Thank you. And my last poem is called Black Woman Battle Cry, and it's a golden shovel poem after Terrence Hayes' American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassins. 1. This Black woman is angry the way her Blackness is being policed by friends. A poet would make a list of aggressions, would go sword to paper to do something, would love to see the white world burn into reparations and equity, but say I do nothing. What would become of this war I began? This Black woman is tired with people trying to speak for her. Hughes didn't die for a pen to be stolen by someone who doesn't read or write. 2. God, why did you put me in this body? I know it's a forbidden thought, but why can't my skin be coated in another color? A man once asked to lick the chocolate off my skin. It's a shame I considered. 3. My thoughts begin as waves crashing against rocks in my head. They try to squeeze between all the hard places Black women had to go through, like learning how to exist in spaces that were taken from us, like poetry. This Black woman is weary about weirdos claiming Black culture without consequences. Black moms, mamas, and mas raised warriors, but I've been thrown into this fight with only poetry as my weapon. Is a pen mightier than a gun? Did you know that a pretty sunset is a result of 1930s pollution? And bridges were only built to give trolls stable homes. And windows were made so white people could see everything they don't have. 4. If writing rescues, then why do I want to die all the time? My therapist has a hunch that I only want my pain to end. 5. I often think of all the Black women that rest on my shoulders. One told me I'm an inspiration. One said to step aside. Was it wrong to take the step and not mean it? Not only do I have to share my pen with especially bad writers, I have to have fun while doing it. Otherwise, I'm the angry Black girl. Like-minded company is so hard to come by these days. 6. A friend calls me queen anytime he sees me, but does a queen wish she was thin, wish she was light-skinned, wish her subjects didn't know how much she fought so she could take a break? This Black queen is exhausted. She can barely get out of bed, but she doesn't have the luxury of being depressed. 7. Ordinary is a word I would love to be called. What good is it being special when all they do is punish you for it? Call you a nightmare when you were once their visionary. I have a vision, but that vision can't get anywhere without boldness. Orpheus, a Greek poet, decided to invent a new way to tell someone I love you alone. But history never tells you when something doesn't work. His intentions were misunderstood. 8. I have it in writing that I'm as misunderstood as his intentions. We're forced to react to the insecurities of our oppressors like they're our problem. How is it me and a dead Greek man have more in common than the writing of white men? When I had this realization, I wanted to cry. He doesn't get the girl. Orpheus gave his heart, and she thought he hated her. My beloved is a pretty thing called writing, and she's let me down. 9. This Black girl is done with the he's and hims, done with people telling her what she said or what she meant. I mean what I say unapologetically and blindly. I have a hunch that without the restraints you set for yourself, we'd all be happier. Orpheus just wanted to love, and I want to exist. I don't know the answer to all the questions. I don't know if this poem is the answer to any of my problems, but I know that Orpheus and I will never apologize for feeling like ourselves. Thank you.
Fantastic. Please give Lauren a hand. Oh, I love when you say thrown into this fight with only poetry as a weapon. I feel like you're going to win. I feel like it's inevitable. That's what I think. And y'all, could you please give a warm round of applause to all of our 3 poets today? What fantastic words we've gotten to hear out loud. I'm so thankful and so excited to hear what they do next with their work. So y'all, do not be strangers. I'll be telling you this separately by email, but I want to know how things go for you and how your poems go and your various other pursuits. So yes, thank you again so much. And again, if you're interested in the Witness Anthology, you can find it at lulu.com with work from these writers if you want to read some of these poems on the page, as well as writers from across the state. And thank you again to Kelly Jones and to David Radovich, our Eastern Region Coordinator and the State Coordinator, respectively, for the Gilbert-Chappell program. If you're interested in joining the program from anywhere in the state, you can apply at the North Carolina Poetry Society website. And I think that's all we have for you today, but I feel like I've had just like a 5-course meal at this point. Like I feel pretty happy. So thank you again so much for joining us. David, Kelly, anything y'all want to add?
No,
David?
thank you all. I really appreciated hearing everybody.
Thank you, David, for coming, and Annalena, thank you for the work you've done, for several years. I want to tell our poets a short little story. So when I was 19, I was writing poetry and I was loving it, and something happened. I got busy and I put it down for 30 years. And when I picked it back up, it was a revelation to me. And what I'd like to just tell you is, all 3 of you, don't stop writing. Don't walk away from it, because you each have a gift. And poetry can be a way to help you process the phases of life. it can be so rewarding. And then those that get to read your work are rewarded by reading it. So don't make the mistake that I did and take 30 years off. Keep doing it.
And if I could add a footnote, I hope you'll stay involved if you're in North Carolina with the North Carolina Poetry Society. We have workshops, we have events, we have contests and publications. It's a wonderful group of poets across the state. So please do keep in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Yes, follow what the North Carolina Poetry Society does. It's a huge advocate for poetry in the state and a sweet, sweet group of people, as are y'all. I'm so thankful to hear your words today. Hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Please clap really loud at home for these people so they can hear it through the ether, even if we can't hear it on the screen. Y'all just know that we appreciate you and are so thankful for your words. Everybody have a fine day.